Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers, the voice of college football. I'm here with my fantastic co-hosts, Gabriel Pickup and Donovan Gibbs. We have a great show here for you tonight. We're going to talk about an update on Rutgers quarterback Athan Kaliakmanis as he attempts to get drafted into the NFL. And we're going to talk about 5 key players for the offense in the upcoming season. So, Gabe, why don't you start us off? What update do you have for us?
Yeah, it's an update courtesy of Donovan in our group chat per On3, Rutgers On3, that Athan has been snubbed from the Combine invite. And to me, that is some bogus because I looked through the list, I went through everyone's numbers, and he basically objectively had a better season than 3 players. And he, for namesake 6, but 3 of the 6, I'll say, their name gets them in, their program gets them in, and I can't complain with that too much because they had really good 2024s and then fell off a bit. But overall, I understand why they were there. But to me, he had a better season than Jalen Daniels out of Kansas with the same record in a tougher conference, by the way. He had a way better season than Taylon Green out of Arkansas. And by the way, they finished 2-10, 0-8 in the SEC. Better statistical season than FCS quarterback Cole Payton, though I understand they were 12-1, but they still missed out on the championship. And players he was better than that got in for namesake value. And I understand getting the invite, though I think Athan worked harder and had a better year this year, but I can't debate because of their names alone, and that is Drew Aller. Obviously, I hope he recovers well and has a solid NFL career. Cade Klubnik for previous seasons at Clemson, and Garrett Nussmeier, who he kind of has the LSU tax. He had a good 2024, but overall, that's 6 players that Athan, you can say, had a better case than. Obviously, the last 3 I named, they were going to get in no matter what, unfortunately, for, Athan. But the first 3 I named, Cole Payton, Jalen Daniels, and Taylon Green, I think Athan had a way better season than all 3 of them.
Easily, he had a better season than Garrett Nussmeier, easily had a better season than Aller, even before Aller ended up getting hurt. And I'm just genuinely surprised that he was not on this list, but Jalen Daniels was. And Jalen Daniels had a decent second half stretch of the season, but throughout the first half of the year, he was rough. He only had really one good game and that was against NEC team Wagner. Outside of that, he lost the next 3 to 4 games. And now Athan got snubbed, primarily just the FCS guy getting in before Athan got in really made no sense to me, just due to what the numbers that he had. Yeah, the numbers that Athan was able to have in one of the best conferences in college football in the Big Ten is miles ahead of what Cole Payton was able to do. And it just makes me wonder why Athan was just getting snubbed. Hopefully, I know Rutgers is either doing their pro days soon, because teams do their pro days right after the combine. And I just hope Athan's able to prove a lot of people wrong. But I just wanted to hear, Adam, who were some QBs that caught your eye that Athan got snubbed because of?
Well, and I certainly appreciate that, that we say that he got snubbed. But I don't think, Gabe, you're talking about the real, more important snub that happened regarding Athan. And that concerns this show. I believe that he was invited on this show and we got snubbed. Is that correct? Did I hear correctly?
Possible. It's pending, I'll say.
Athan, we love you and wish you the best. But, get around to coming on the show. We'd love to interview you. Here's what I think, guys. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I thought he had a great year. I thought he was a fantastic teammate. I thought he was very resilient. He had a great game against Penn State, and he really improved throughout the year. No question about his toughness, his grit, the intangibles. I think that they just don't think he's good enough. That's my take. I think it's that simple. The scouts do not think he is good enough, and I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think that he will get his chance as an undrafted free agent, likely, or a late rounder. And when he gets his chance, he's going to have the opportunity to prove him wrong.
Adam, you have a peanut gallery going at you in the comments, by the way.
Yeah, you know what? That's just jealousy. It's just jealousy. You don't have my hair, and you're not as articulate. So what can I say? No, I like Ben and Sam. They're great, and I like Ben and whatever. But my point being this. he's going to have an opportunity to do that. But I do think that his likely trajectory, if he's in the NFL, is as a backup.
It's just that he statistically had better years, played in a tougher conference, and he was the most attentive in John Gruden's QB camp. He was the only one taking notes that got invited. It was very impressive how dedicated he was.
Yeah, and as we've seen, the QB camp for John Gruden has shown some alumni so far. Jackson Dart was a member of that last year, and he got invited to the combine. So I'm just, how come Athan's not getting the same sort of respect that he deserves to get based off of what people have saw on film? And
I'll tell you what, no signature win is the reason.
Here's the thing. I think when it comes to
but why is a win being a QB stat in a combine?
I agree, and the fact that Taylon Green went, well, Arkansas went 2-10. I'm just saying that's the only thing I can argue is if we beat Penn State, if we beat Iowa, if we beat Minnesota, like one of those three, let alone two of them, maybe that would have been the difference. But I don't think that. I still think he should have been invited. When you look at Cole Payton, he has less passing yards, less touchdowns, has a higher completion percentage, 72%, very impressive. When you look at Taylon Green, he has obviously the worst record, less passing yards, less touchdowns, more interceptions, worse rating. Like, to me, that is the obvious one, Taylon Green. He had a solid year for a program.
The one that just catches me off my eyes is that you didn't even mention it either, was how Joe.
Yeah, I know. That last name
I know. Joe Fano.
Uh-huh.
He played at a UConn squad while having, albeit 300 more passing yards and 8 more touchdowns and 6 less interceptions. He still played in more of a easier schedule compared to what Athan did, and he was still similar numbers in just terms of passing yards. So that's why I'm just also surprised how a UConn guy was able to get in outside of a Rutgers guy. And if you keep looking at the numbers, it just shows how certain players, I truly believe Garrett Nussmeier only gets into this combine because he's at LSU. There's no way a guy who threw for under 2,000 yards and got benched at the end of the season deserves a combine invite.
Well, I just think that Nussmeier and Klubnik only got in because of 2024. I think their 2024 years were impressive enough that they can have either.
I truly believe that as well as for Haynes King. Haynes King got in for the same reason.
Haynes King, I mean, Georgia Tech did have a good year this year.
Well, look, when it comes to the combine, like I said, I don't think that they think he's good enough. And I think with respect to the combine, they're looking at objective measurable factors. They're looking at arm strength. They're looking at accuracy. They're looking at how he throws the ball when the play breaks down, his ability to throw the ball into tight windows, his mobility. And I think on the objective measurables, he's on the border. So I could see why he would and would not get an invite. I mean, it could go either way. What Ethan has going for him is the intangibles. His grit, his teammate, he's smart. That's what his best selling point is to the NFL.
I think half of the points you mentioned, though, are things that you would figure out at the combine.
Especially the grit and things like that. That they interview players at the combine as well. This is the best time for executives to even talk to players. A lot of the people that they send to the American Bowl games, the one that Athan just competed in alongside one of the receivers from Rutgers, typically they only bring scouts there. For the combine, they have people and executives from each team, GMs from each team talk to the players. So that's stuff that Athan could have put on to a higher level and just more notoriety if he even got invited.
You also have to look, how did he perform against Ohio State? How did he perform against Illinois? How did he perform against Oregon? There is an argument to be made that he's just not on the same level as Nussmeier. I hate to say it, even though the stats don't show it, but the measurables do. Like I said, Athan, yes, he's a very good quarterback, but is he NFL caliber? I'm not sure. But I do know that he has the intangibles, his intelligence, his ability, his grit, his heart, his toughness. But the question is going to be, does he have the skill set to be able to succeed as a backup in the NFL? And I think the question is, we're not sure yet, but I think it's probably I would put it at about 40% he doesn't get drafted. I'm sorry, 60% he doesn't get drafted. 40% he does. I just think he's got a way to go to prove himself, and he'll have that opportunity as a UDFA.
I think it's a little more than 60, unfortunately, because it's almost parallel that you get an invite to the combine and you have a chance to be drafted. And I hope that the scouts are taking into account his heart, his work ethic. I saw this really stupid commercial, and unfortunately I haven't been able to escape it. It's the Microsoft Copilot commercial with the guy using the AI model to determine who he should draft. And it's like, this isn't really related, but like, we're talking about the combine and pro day and stuff and the draft, and I really hope that people don't use stupid AI models. The guy literally says, narrow the search down to who has good leadership qualities.
That's not something you want to find with with Microsoft Copilot. No offense to Microsoft Copilot, you're not going to find that with them.
You're trying to you're trusting Copilot to tell you who has good leadership. Use your eyes.
I honestly believe the thing about that commercial that makes no sense to me is that if anybody from not even just a NFL staff, but on a college staff, did any form of scouting through AI, they would get fired immediately on the spot if a head coach or someone of a higher stature saw them using AI to recruit players.
And if you're a scout using AI, why do they need you when they can do that themselves? I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that was a stupid commercial.
They're using AI across all industries now because they're able to take advantage of the analytics aspect of it. Now, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I will say last night I was on Microsoft Copilot and I asked it, based on all the factors in my life, how long will I live? And it said 49 years old. And I just turned 50. So does this mean it's like those soccer games when you run out of time and you're on borrowed time? What does this mean?
No, there's good aspects of AI. Like medically, I'm a fan of that. It can help people like with ALS speak that can't speak and stuff like that. But for everyday jobs, man, it's just it's making us replaceable. Anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
I agree with you.
It's just using it for football recruiting is dumb, when the best way to recruit is just looking at film. And bringing that back to what we mentioned about Athan, his film looks better than, I would arguably say, 10 quarterbacks on that list.
You're hired because they trust you to come to your own conclusions based on what you're seeing and hearing. Goodness. Anyways, back to Athan. If anyone who is a scout uses their eyeballs, their ears, their minds to scout Athan, they're going to say he's a good leader. He had a rough defense. And sure, he had a couple of bad games against some very notable opponents, but they were the top of the class in the Big Ten. Any quarterback would struggle against Ohio State, besides in the playoffs, I guess, apparently, or if you're Fernando Mendoza. But, they were one of the best defenses of all time. Oregon is always a top defense. They're always a top program. And it's very rare that a player does well against Oregon. The only game I think Athan truly had an outlier, really bad game was against Illinois. Illinois was the second worst defense in the Big Ten last year in terms of points per game, if I remember correctly, and we were the first, but they still put up their 38 against us, and we only put up 19. So that was the one game. And guess what? After that, we put up 35 against Maryland, who offensively were inconsistent, but defensively they were not that bad this year, and we still put up 35. And then Penn State, they're always a good defense, and we put up, 36 against them?
I was at that game. He had a great game against Penn State. But look, when you talk about Oregon was thoroughly and completely exposed against the Hoosiers. And I just think that there are some blemishes. When you look at the games, he hasn't played well. It's always been against stiffer competition. And I think that there's some questions about his arm strength. And I do understand why he's not invited to the combine. I just don't think they think he's good enough. And I think it's a question right now, and I'm being fair. It's a 50-50 shot. And I think that he's got to focus on pro day, and that's where he's going to show them.
If you don't want to say Jalen Daniels or Cole Payton, Adam, shouldn't he have gotten the invite over Taylon Green?
So I don't know enough about him to say either way. So I will trust your assessment.
I'll I'll read you the statistics, and I'm not gonna sway the numbers. I'm just gonna read it from left to right for all the passing statistics this year. 198 of 326, 60.7 completion percentage, 2714 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, long of 62, 143.2 rating, and all of those numbers, every single one of them is worse than Athan's, and they were 2-10.
I think they're looking beyond the stats. The stats don't tell you much. What they're looking is what's his arm strength? What are his?
Yes, so let me look at his rushing. Maybe this guy
Look
is
at his rushing, and just for I'll give the size of Taylor Green. The height.
okay. He can run. But is the rushing enough for being outdone in every statistical passing category? I don't know.
I truly believe that's the same thing that got Haynes King, and Haynes King was top 10 in QB rushing touchdowns this season, and I think he was top 15 in QB rush yards this season as well, and that's why he got in. He threw for sub 3,000 yards for Georgia Tech, and my thing is, there's no excuse for why Athan is not in. You can't say it's a size thing because Diego Pavia is listed at 5'10", and he's invited to the combine. You can't say it's a numbers thing because Taylor Green, Garrett Nussmeier, Kay Klubnik, guys who honestly had higher expectations coming into the year than Athan Kaliakmanis,
Heisman expectations
completely just plummeted after week 4 and had arguably the worst seasons of their entire career. Garrett Nussmeier, arguably worst last 2 seasons of his entire career in just terms of LSU quarterback standards. But Athan Kaliakmanis had better numbers than them. So my genuine thing is, why not look at the best QBs? What did he show on film that would worry a lot of just NFL staff and just people that invite people to the combine? I just wonder from what we all saw, what did you see last year that might have worried staff or worried scouts, in your opinion?
Arm strength.
Really? Arm strength, I thought, was his strength. No pun intended.
I think he throws a great ball, but when I'm comparing him to NFL prospects, I think that's the number one reason.
I think I know we just praised, Donovan and I praised him. Adam, you gave fair constructive criticism, but I will say I think that his inability to escape the pocket is a little worrisome, and the fact that he can't run. And just the fact, I think his previous mistakes, his first year at Rutgers and his years at Minnesota, are kind of overshadowing what a great year he had.
Well, I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to see what scouts say about his strengths and his weaknesses, and we'll find out for sure.
Yeah, because I'm just so surprised by it. Because primarily, if we're going to talk about his mobility, there's QBs on here that I'm seeing that had worse mobility. Garrett Nussmeier could not run in the pocket. I could outrun Garrett Nussmeier, and I'm currently right now at 250 pounds. So there's this thing that I'm just off about. I'm primarily just off about. Because if we're going to go off of arm strength, like what Adam is saying, I can show you a couple of clips right now where Athan was able to throw really good deep balls where they honestly could have been picked off if any other QB from this list threw them. There was balls that I saw him throw that Kay Klubnik did not throw this season. Balls that he threw that arguably Sawyer Robinson did not throw this season. A lot of Sawyer Robinson's stats this season with Baylor was due to a lot of plays made by wide receivers after the catch. So we're looking at something right now where a really decently good QB prospect, Athan Kaliakmanis, who played it in a very tough conference, and despite that, finished top 5 in yards in that conference, surprisingly just got the boot.
Yeah, it's just that when you compare him to like Sawyer Robertson, I can't do that because he had better numbers across the board besides interceptions, and Baylor probably had less offensive talent than us too, and he still had better numbers. That's why I can't, if you're going to be better than Athan significantly, whether it's as, being on a better team, having better numbers, one of those two, that has to be the reason. If you're worse in one of those by a fair amount and you're only comparatively better or worse in both categories overall, I can't see why you should get the invite over Athan. And I'm trying to be objectively fair here because I know to people on TikTok or people on Instagram that come across a Rutgers page, they're probably going to be quick to turn the other way when someone's saying a Rutgers quarterback should make the combine over a Baylor quarterback or a Georgia Tech quarterback or, even Kansas at this point. But definitely.
No, they didn't want to say that about Kansas.
They look at Clemson.
That's the thing as well. If you put Athan on those Clemson and LSU teams, they do. I truly believe LSU most likely finish off the year as a 10-win team if Athan's there with that type of talent that they had last season. You can arguably say the same thing about Clemson as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that people are going to say, what the hell is the Rutgers program doing saying a Rutgers quarterback should have gotten in over Clemson and LSU? And that's why I'm trying to be fair, but it still looks like numbers-wise, 2 years ago they had the really good seasons, but last year they were no comparison to Athan.
Well,
oh no, Adam, get your point off. My bad.
I was just going to say, on the Draft Network, when they're talking about Athan, they talk about his strengths being he's a pocket climber, timing and rhythm passer, good touch passer, and a functional athlete. But the concerns are arm talent to push the ball down the field, poor ball placement and accuracy, and decision making under pressure.
I just think he improved at all of those things this year, though. Like the trajectory.
If we're talking about people who play under pressure and make stupid mistakes, that's once again just points my eye out to the bottom three of this class, where Taylor Green, Jalen Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on Drew Aller. And
I saw Drew Aller throw a Subway $5 footlong to a cornerback in Happy Valley week 4 with undefeated aspirations on the line against Oregon when they were up by 10.
Yeah, it's just that
that
mistake that Athan had against Penn State, that was not circumstantially up there, but in terms of how bad it looked, it was up there.
I'm with you on Drew Aller. I do not think Drew Aller should be at the combine. But my question for you guys is this. Let's assume Drew Aller was not at the combine and the other quarterbacks you mentioned were not at the combine either. Would you still think that Athan should be there?
Wait, say that again, Foley?
If everyone that I think he should have gotten in over didn't get in, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, so let's say we're going to cut out Jalen Daniels, Nussmeier, Aller, and right now we're still having a list where Kay Klubnik, Luke Altmaier, guy that outside of the head-to-head game that they played against, had an overall better season than
I give the edge. Position. I give the edge to Luke for the year just because of their record and numbers-wise, it's very similar.
Would you still say that he's worth going in over Haynes King?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I wouldn't say
14 pass touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He was more known for his running than his passing.
Georgia Tech isn't historic. They had a good year this year, but they're not historically on the level of a Clemson or Louisville or Miami when it comes to the ACC.
I think an argument can be made either way in favor of Athan or Haynes King. I think it's close. But my point is, I don't know if we'd be making the same argument if those players who you thought shouldn't be there, let's assume they weren't. Then I don't know if would you still be saying Athan should have been in it?
Honestly, they would have let him in regardless because just due to how small the 2026 class is and also with how a lot of those QBs are either transferring or returning to their schools, Athan should have gotten in. It would have been, if we take off those people that we listed, Drew Aller, if we take off Nussmeier, if we take off Cole Payton, if we also do take off Haynes King and
Taylor Green,
Jalen Daniels, then the rest of the class is Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Barry Morton, which I understand he would be in as well. I could see Carson Beck in as well, Sawyer Robinson, Diego Pavia, whose numbers I'm not even going to argue with, despite him giving up a 6-inch height differential to Athan Kaliakmanis. Kaliakmanis would still fit himself in there perfectly. You have, for the combine, it's typically 12 to 15 spots for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I can't see a world where Athan wasn't at least a top 20 to top 15 quarterback this season. You can make that argument.
Yeah. like I said, namesake. A lot of these names are bigger than Athan's.
Or just draft eligible guys. He's top 15 in terms of draft eligible guys.
And why am I mad about this for him? It's because this severely affects his chances of getting drafted. I don't know the last time a quarterback didn't get invited to the combine and still got drafted. I don't know if it's happened. I mean, I'm sure it's happened eventually, like if you trace it back long enough, but I don't know when that was.
If he isn't getting in and he still gets drafted, it's primarily because he had a phenomenal pro day. There's no other way to cut it.
Do you think Athan even wants to go to the combine?
Of course.
If he wants to get drafted, yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like he's going to have his opportunity at pro day, and I have a feeling the scouts will already settled on what's going to happen with him.
So I actually am seeing now Sports Illustrated has Mark Gronowski and Joey Aguilar as this year's snubs for the combine. I didn't even think of either of them.
You could put Gronowski on there as well.
Yeah, Gronowski for sure.
Joey had a better season than half of the people on this list, and he beat one of the players on this list in Pavia.
I get FCS representation. Take out Cole Payton and keep in Joe Fanione, whatever his name is. My apologies, Joe from UConn. Take out him and put in Athan. Take out Taylon Green and put in Gronowski. Take out Jalen Daniels and put in Joey Aguilar.
I don't think Joey Aguilar would be in this since I know he's fighting for another season. He's currently trying to return.
Oh, is he? I thought he was.
Yeah, he's fighting for another year of eligibility. That's why he sued Tennessee, so he won't even be on this list. You can still keep Fanau in. You can still keep Cole Payton in because at the end of the day, he did have a really good year at NDSU. And despite that, the QB at Minnesota, I truly believe that if he wanted to go into not the QB at Minnesota, the QB at Montana, my apologies. If he wanted to get drafted and declared for the draft, he honestly could have made a point for himself to get into the combine as well.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, how about that Ole Miss saga going on right now?
Oh my God! That is the biggest court case victory won in Mississippi.
Yes.
I can't even think of any other major cases. Not even just on a sports level, just in general of the judiciary process. That might have been the biggest court case ever in the state of Mississippi.
This is
bigger than Favre.
Is it not a conflict of interest that the judge is an Oxford, Mississippi native?
It definitely is. But if the NCAA really cared enough, they would fight it. I just don't think they care because I just know this season, Ole Miss heads to Death Valley to face off against Lane Kiffin. They want that matchup to be Sam Levitt versus Trinidad Chambliss. They want that matchup. That matchup is going to be 8 p.m. Have Kirk Herbstreit on the call on ESPN, primetime, SEC on ESPN. That's going to be that type of game.
The most viewed SEC game of the year?
Arguably, it will be outside of whatever Alabama, Georgia is.
Over Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Oklahoma.
No. Well, no, I could see it actually. I think Auburn is going to be a better team this year with Byron Brown there.
I'm going to predict a major twist to the story. Trinidad Chambliss declared eligible for one more year at Ole Miss, then transfers to LSU.
It's too late.
No, he's using this year to get as much money as he can because he didn't really see money like that until halfway through the season when AT&T ended up doing a lot of sponsorship deals with him. He's trying to see the NIL money because at the end of the day, this is a guy that got recruited to play D2 football at Ferris State. He wasn't seeing what he's seeing now. So he wants to indulge in that a season longer, which I understood from his standpoint. If I'm just seeing $10 million, why would I want to go to the draft now and potentially go to a team as a second round pick and make $4 million? I want to continue making $10 million.
For sure. And by the way, Cinema Man, we went over the defense last week, the top 5 impact players on defense. If you want to check that out after the show, it's just the last live from last week. And spoiler alert, most of the guys we talked about are transfers. I know. Second year in a row. Big shot.
We should drop the link in the link.
I am on that right now. And on that note, I think we went over everything with Athan. Any final points on that or not really?
Well, we could have gone over more with Athan if he was here.
True that.
No, since he's
if I was Athan in that boat, I wouldn't want to risk that. That's potentially burning bridges that you still want to cross.
Would you be saying the same things directly to him?
I absolutely would be saying the same things to him, and I think he would appreciate the honesty. I mean, look, I tell it like it is. People may not like it. They may like, who knows? But at least you know where I'm coming from. And, if ever anybody's offended by it, well, okay. But, I mean, it's better to offend someone than to not offend them because you're being fake.
True that.
That's true.
And now we got
the 5 offensive players, huh?
Yes, sir. Speaking of offensive, if you are offended, we're going to be talking about the offensive side of the football. So you want to go from 5 down to 1 again, like we did last week?
Yes. I just got some honorable mentions. There's a couple of OLIs, outsides looking in before I get into my list. I just want to get out the way if you two gentlemen don't mind.
Go for it.
My honorable mentions here before I get into my top 5. The first honorable mention is Dizer Carter, a 4-star freshman and the highest-ranked recruit last season, highest-ranked recruit in the 2026 class for Rutgers. And I truly see them making a potential ability to make an impact because he is an early enrollee, which typically means that he is going to be more likely to play starting the season than not if he came in during the summer. If you're coming in January, that means Cosciano and our offensive coordinator, I think his name is Cam Scaloretta, if I'm correct.
Sharetta, something like that. Yeah.
Cam Sharetta.
Yeah.
They want him to learn the offense now, so by the time in the summer, he's getting reps with the ones and being able to just know things at the back of his mind. Because right now, Rutgers still needs a number 2 receiver. Yes, we have KJ Duff, and then after KJ Duff, who would you say the number 2 would be? Ben Black?
That's what I just asked the chat. I think it's Ben Black, but Desir Carter really could be.
Desir Carter has that chance. Kirk Chiarota.
Siroka,
Thank you, Jason. But I truly believe that he has that potential to be that number 2 out of all the guys that projected to be Dino Kaliakmanis, Jordan Holston, Elias Koch, another guy that I could see.
Oh, yeah, Cody Koch. Elias Cody Koch. He could be wide receiver, too.
I could see him being wide receiver 3 alongside Carter or have Carter in the slot. But having Duff on the outside, they need to be able to have 2 more guys. And I truly believe that Jared Carter being one of those 2 guys. My second outside looking in is Cameron Anthony, the transfer from Ball State. Right now, Rutgers hasn't really used tight ends, but if how I see the offense being ran next year, where it's going to be a lot of running mixed with some play action, Cam Anthony is going to have a crucial role in that, being a guy that he's going to be in a lot of these run personnels, whether it's 12 or 13 personnel. I saw Rutgers run a lot of 12 personnel last season, and at the end of the year, they went back to a lot of 11 personnel and started running out of that, but they're most likely we're going to see Rutgers run potential 2 tight ends a lot this season due to the amount of running ability that they have in the backfield with Clay Thevenin and Antoine Raymond. So Cam Anthony is going to have to show his role as a run blocker and as a pass catcher, and he didn't really have a bright or just upstanding season at Ball State. His numbers were very quiet. So if he's able to show what he's able to do with his potential, at the end of the day, he's a 6'4", over 230-pound tight end who can potentially make a lot of noise in this conference. If you have that height in tight end, as long as you're able to block, you're going to get the ball. Cam Anthony has that opportunity to make some noise with Rutgers and do something and be a better version of Clenny Fetcher Jr.
You think better? I think he could be all right. I don't think he's going to be utilized near as much.
He's still young. So at the end of the day, if he's able to just block as a tight end, I know he's going to get the ball in this offense, and I truly can see the numbers go up.
Wow, that would surprise me because doesn't he have 7 career? I mean, he was there for like 1 or 2 years, right? Up at where did he come from? All State?
Yeah, Mac.
Yeah, so he had 7 catches, right, for 150 yards or something.
Yeah.
So that would surprise me, especially under Shiano's offense, if they utilized him, one, because his numbers aren't that impressive, but 2, because it's more just Shiano's offense or Sierroka's offense. I know Sierroka does most of the play calling, but Shiano historically doesn't use tight ends like that. I mean, we had 2 good tight ends last year. Either one of them could have been tight end 1 on a number of Big Ten teams, Power 4 teams, and we didn't really see any of them do too much until Kenny Fletcher the last couple weeks.
That's why I say Cam Anthony could make an impact, just due to right now Rutgers doesn't have the available players outside of KJ Duff on the outside at that receiver spot to just be a 11 personnel team and run 3 wide receivers. Because outside of KJ Duff, who is really that number 2 slot guy or number 2, number 3 guy? That's why I'm saying right now the mentality for Rutgers might be a run-first offense, which is something Shiano has shown in the past to love.
It's Ben Black for now, but with wiggle room for Carter, for Cody Koch, for Michael Thomas. Vernon Allen, he had a good spring game, but then he also got hurt for the year in that spring game, so it would be interesting to see how he comes back.
I also would love to see how Fama Toure is going to look this year, because I know he was out the entire season last year due to injury from the spring game, and that's going to be a lot of motivation going into this year. So potentially he could be that number 2 or number 3 guy, but there's a lot of question marks there, and that's why I personally believe Shiano's going to be potentially utilizing tight ends more, because right now his 2 best players was KJ Duff, who was recruited originally to be a tight end, and now Cam Anthony, who is a tight end transfer. So
I think it's just crazy. It seems like we have a true wide receiver 1, and then like 6 wide receiver 3s or 4s.
I see what Cinnamon _ enjoy the show is saying in regards to there's talent. Yes, there's talent, but there's not a lot of experience between that talent. And that's where a lot of the question marks are going to come in, because once the Big Ten starts rolling around, you don't really want guys that this is going to be most likely their first season or their first true season as a starter, or as a guy that's most likely going to get carries, a guy that didn't get targets last year starting to get targets, to be those primary options for a young QB in Dylan Longerin in areas such as Michigan. Against teams such as Michigan, against teams such as USC, going on the road as well, and Wisconsin going on the road against Big Ten schools. That's not something you would want for a young QB. And that's why I truly see right now they're going to be heavily run first.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Gabe.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I thought those were the honorable mentions. I don't really have any. I guess my honorable mention would be whichever quarterback is QB2, because you better be ready. This isn't the same security that Athan had last year. This is you're going to have room for mistakes, but you can't be consistently poor, or else guess what? QB2 is stepping up to QB1, so you need to be ready.
Yeah, I think that how good Rutgers' offense is next year comes down to the quarterback play. And whoever's in there, Lonergan has more experience. He was a more highly touted recruit, but we're going to have a quarterback who has the arm strength and the ability to really balance that offense and throw the ball to tight windows. I don't know how it's going to play out, because Lonergan didn't have a great year last year, and I don't know how good AJ Serace is. So I think that it starts with the quarterback, and that's going to be a big indicator of how far we can go on offense and whether we're going to be a 4-8 team or a 7-5 team or a 6-6 team.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll
I will say that I keep on reading what Cinnamon is saying to trust the freshman. I can see Dizer Carter playing. I'm just once again saying that if Dizer Carter is the number 2 and you're going into Happy Valley in November with most likely a sold out arena there, over 60,000, that's going to be a potential that's going to be something challenging for Longren. You want to be able to make Longren's transition easier because we saw it already with Athan Kaliakmanis. His first year at Rutgers was rough. I know Shiano has that in the back of his head to make that first year at a new school transition a bit easier for Longren, and to make it easier, you want guys that have experience being on the field and knowing where to be at the right times for a guy that's still getting accustomed to a new offense.
Oh, so you just made me think of a perfect question then. Would it be easier for Lonergan to come in as QB2 or QB1? On one hand, you have job security. On the other hand, you have
he's here to be QB1. There's no way you're going to not start him, a guy that's already had experience against Big Ten competition. This guy, at the end of the day, yeah, it was Michigan State, but he threw for 390 yards and 4 TDs against Michigan State.
Oh, right. Sorry.
So Race hasn't peed a drop yet in terms of just football terms. That's what my coach would say. He hasn't peed a drop yet. I truly believe Longren has brought in here to be QB1, but if Race has a better camp, and let's say I know that Howard game is going to play a huge factor, whoever plays good in the minutes that they have, because it's going to be split between those two QBs.
Yeah, I just don't think that Lonergan transferred from Boston College to be the number 2 quarterback.
There's no way he transfers from an ACC starter to become a backup in the Big Ten.
It just seems like Shiano's been higher on AJ Sarace in his pressers. I'm not mad at whoever starts. I just think that it's not very concrete yet. That's why I said
I think he's higher, Gabe. I think he's higher on Sarace because he's been in the program longer, and it's going to really come down to camp. I don't think this is going to be something that a spring game is going to declare the true winner of. Yeah. He wants to see the spring game alongside fall camp and to see how they play in certain situationals. We haven't seen AJ Sarace be in a situation where a team is down and he has to get a first down, or if he's backed up at his own goal line and he has to get a first down. We haven't seen him do certain high pressure moments like that, and that's going to be something that Shiano's going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think that Shiano's going to play the best quarterback. So I'm certain he didn't make any promises to Lonergan. It's going to be a competition, but it seems to me, based on his experience and his talent, that the edge would go to Lonergan. But it still is uncertain. But whoever is the quarterback, they've got to come in there and fill some pretty big shoes. And if they don't, it's going to be a long season for Rutgers because we cannot be one-dimensional.
No, definitely not. And I think this is kind of where I was at too, is that it seems like internally a lot of people think Sarace could really be a very good starting quarterback for us. It's going to be a year where we rely on our stars a little more, which is good and bad. We do have a little bit less depth offensively, at least on paper as of now, but that also means more touches for our stars. And I mean, Antoine Raymond was getting his fair share of touches the second half of last year too. I think Raymond could actually get a little less touches this year, but KJ Duff is going to have a monster season.
Yeah, I think so too.
So my number 5 impact offense player actually is Antoine Raymond's counterpart, Clay Thevenin. He out of Louisiana Tech is going to be a junior next year. Or a redshirt sophomore. He only played 1 year at least on the field so far. 4.8 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, 634 yards. And he caught 33 passes too for 269 yards. I think that with better protection and on a more fundamentally sound program and another really good running back, I think we're going to be running a little more than throwing this year. And Clay Thevenin is going to be a top 5 impact player on the offense.
Fair enough.
I like it. I have him a little bit higher, but
okay.
My number 5 is going to be, as you said, Rutgers is going to be primarily focusing on running the ball. And I truly believe Isaiah Cook, the grad transfer from Delaware State, he's coming in to compete with Gus's younger brother, Hank Saliskas, for that starting center spot. Hank Saliskas sat last season, but before that he played 2 seasons at Colorado. And don't let the fact that he's an HBCU player fool you. This man is a really good center, and he can honestly play all spots of the offensive line. Last year, he was first team All MEAC, which is one of the HBCU conferences in the FCS. He was All MEAC as primarily right guard, and he did spend a couple of games at right tackle, and he was an HBCU All-American as well. This was the first guy that new offensive line coach Jim Turner brought in, and Cook committed because he bought into what Jim Turner was telling him about how he envisions the offensive line room at Rutgers. And he's a veteran. This is a guy that has played a lot of snaps. He's been a starter since his sophomore season back in 2022. He did have an injury in 2024 and bounced back this year even stronger, being a first-teamer. The last 2 years, he was a third-team guy in the MEAC. This is a guy that Deshaun Jackson, former Eagles player and one of the greater wide receivers of the late 2000s, early 2010s, mid-2010s, absolutely loved as a head coach. And if you're getting love from a guy that loves catching the ball as an offensive lineman, that typically means you're in a good spot. And having that veteran presence is going to be something that's going to be very impactful for guys that are returning, such as Tyler Needham, Kobe Asamoah, who is going to be at that right guard spot as well. And him out there making calls at center is going to provide a big impact for an offensive line that is still strong enough with the returners and are able to just fine-tune under this Jim Turner unit.
Sure.
My turn to go number 5. Number 5, sure. Tyler Needham. Our offensive line is going to be critical to our success next year. If we do not dominate in the trenches, we do not dominate at all. So I'm going to have 2 offensive linemen on this top 5, and it starts with Tyler.
You know what? I am making a change, and it is I was between Kobe Asamoah and Mashoud Giwa for number 4, because Mashoud Giwa has elite size, 6'7", 310 pounds, according to him, and he actually looked like our best left tackle when he was on the field. He looked like our best left tackle. It was between him, Needham, and I think was it John Stone who got hurt after week 1? Yeah. And, unfortunately, Stone didn't really get to play. Needham he had his ups and downs for sure, but our exterior offensive lineman was our weakness. But Mashoud Giwa wasn't playing every snap, but when he was playing, he looked very sound out there. But I think that based on Asamoah's year, the fact that he was on the All Big Ten watch list, and he could be on that All Big Ten watch list again, based on value, I think that Giwa's position is more critical based on last year's flaws on the offensive line. But based on impact, I'm going Kobe Asamoah, number 4.
I respect that. I truly can see where they can move Asamoah into guard, and there's a potential where Giwa could be that right tackle, Needham at left, because having that size, Needham, who is my number 4, as Adam also said, he's going to be the blind side blocker for Dillard Longerin, and being able to pair that up alongside Mashoud Giwa is going to be something that I could see Bresciano doing. Because, as you said, he did show a lot of good things in the reps that he was given last season. But more on Tyler Needham, grad guy, offensive tackle, another returner for this offensive line, another veteran presence. 0 sacks last season, joined alongside for Isaiah Cook, who had 0 sacks last season as well on high amounts of snaps. So 0 sacks against teams such as Oregon, Ohio State, teams against Illinois as well. And now he's going to most likely face the gauntlet between the schools that are going to have really good pass rushers. He's going to be playing against the starter. Or if he's going to play against USC, Indiana, who have went heavy into edge rushers in this transfer portal, Michigan as well. And that's going to be battles that I'm interested to see if Needham is able to win them. Because if Needham's able to win those, as a guy last year who had an 86% win percentage, which is something that would be eye-popping for a lot of NFL scouts, if he's able to win a lot of those battles in those games, he might mess around and become a potential second-round, third-round guy for Rutgers at offensive tackle, and that's why I have him at number 4.
That would be sick. Yeah, because like I said, the tackle was just a little inconsistent last year.
Well, my number 4 is Gabe's number 4 for the same reasons. Asamoah. I think him and Needham have to have a great year this year to anchor that offensive line. So 2 offensive linemen come in at 5 and 4.
Guys, does Jay Patel have another year of eligibility? I could have swore that.
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not.
Hey, you hope not, but he's our best statistical kicker ever, so.
He gets nervous.
He does.
It does look a little ugly from 50 plus, and if you can't hit from 50 plus, you're not a kicker.
Yeah, Dane Pizarro was.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Dane Pizarro was brought in for long kick at the end of Minnesota. You can't do that. You can't make a guy's first career kick be to win a Big Ten game. That's just not fair. So my number 3 is, it's kind of a cheat, but I said whoever starts at quarterback. I think it's really 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised either way, and I wouldn't be disappointed with whoever is starting, because to me, it's whoever has the better camp, not whoever plays worse in camp. I think whoever is our starter has won the job rather than someone else losing it. And I think that it's not going to be as quarterback heavy this year. There were games where Antoine Raymond did all of the heavy lifting, but most of the games were very dependent on Athan. This next year, I don't think it's as big a case. So last year, our number 1 impact player was probably Athan, but this year I think the quarterback goes from number 1 to number 3.
For my number 3, I have someone that you both have mentioned a little bit earlier, Clay Thevenin, just because of how Rutgers is going to be primarily more of a run-first team this year. I can see Thevenin having a big impact. Yes, at his time at LA Tech, he was a number 1 running back, and he only had 600 yards, and he had 233 yards in the air receiving as well, 8 touchdowns on the ground. I can see those numbers go up because he's going to have a way better offensive line than what he had at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech was one of the lackluster teams in the American last season, so he's going to have – well, no, it wasn't the American Conference USA. He was one of the more lackluster teams in the Conference USA. So going from that to now with Rutgers, he's going to be sharing carries with him. He's going to be sharing carries alongside Antoine Raymond. I know a lot of people and a lot of projected depth charts are saying Deshaun Benjamin because he's back and he played a couple of games last year. Thevenin looks like a better running back than Benjamin, unfortunately. So that's why I can see him being RB2. I could see Deshaun Benjamin come in on third down situations or dispel either guy or any other guy get hurt. I knock on wood for that. But Thevenin has the potential to be a guy that can have over 800 yards rushing to having around 400 yards receiving. I truly believe he's going to be that check down option for Dylan Longerin whenever he's in the game, when it's a passing situation, and being able to have that tough running with Antoine Raymond through first and second down, and then third down having the speed guy such as Clay Thevenin. There's going to be situations in games where Thevenin is going to benefit from Raymond and get a lot of good gashes due to how hard Raymond runs the ball, and then having to deal with a guy that's faster than you. Right after that, coming into the game, is going to be something a lot of Big Ten teams and just teams in general on the schedule are not going to have the joy of dealing with. So that's why I see if Thevenin is able to have a good year, there's a chance where Rutgers has a top 5 running back tandem in the entire Big Ten. I have already right now Ohio State with Bo Jackson. I have Michigan ahead of them as well. I have Iowa ahead of them, which is 3, and then USC, and arguably Rutgers is number 5. So
yeah, Penn State.
If Thevenin is going to have a good year, there's a chance right now where he can make a lot shake for Rutgers.
So number 3, I got to go back to that wide receiving core, Ben Black. We really need somebody who's going to complement KJ Duff, or KJ Duff's not going to have a good year, because if we don't have a legit threat in the wide receiving core, a legit downfield threat, they're going to bracket Duff. They're going to be all over him. So I think it's critical for our offense to have, the equivalent of another Ian Strong. I'm looking at Ben Black.
Yeah, I think Ben Black had enough good moments last year to come into camp as wide receiver too. But going back to the Thevenin versus Jashawn Benjamin thing, Thevenin was kind of brought in to replace CJ Campbell. And when CJ Campbell was playing, he was RB.
At that time, he was RB1. He was getting more carries than Raymond.
Yeah, they were pretty close. They were splitting carries. Jashawn Benjamin was barely RB2. It was between him and Sam Brown, the not first, second, third, or fourth, but the fifth. And I just don't think that a guy who couldn't separate himself from Sam Brown, who I hope has a good year at Temple, I just don't see how he's RB2 over a guy with legitimate football experience at the college level.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention as well, just to re-clarify my top 5 duo list, I truly believe Rutgers is going to be below just these guys. They're going to be below Indiana with Kobe Martin, Turbo Richard, because they have Indiana has a lot of their offensive linemen returning outside of Pat Coogan. Then number 2, most likely is going to be Bo Jackson, Isaiah West at Ohio State. Number 3, Jordan Davison and De'Aaron Hill at Oregon. And then number 4 is going to be Iowa, Kamari Moulton and LJ Phillips, a guy in Phillips who led the FCS in rushing with 1,900 yards last season. And then after that, Rutgers looks like a better combination than I would say Jordan Marshall and Savion Hitler in Michigan.
That's close.
Hitler is good, but I don't know about Mitchell.
Savion was the best player in the class.
Savion was good. Savion is good. It's not about Savion here. It's about Mitchell. Okay. I could say Raymond and arguably Devin, and depending on how well he plays, can have a more impact than Mitchell. I could truly believe with how Penn State has moved on from Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, their new guys, and Quentin Martin Jr. and Cam Wallace. They're still really green. So Rutgers has the edge over those two just because Raymond and Devin have had running back experience in games compared to what Penn State guys have had. A lot of their game situations have been when Penn State blown them out in late game. So I truly believe if Devin is able to do what he's able to do, there's a chance that Rutgers has an RB tandem that can rival a lot of good schools in the Big Ten.
Man, Cinema Man, have some respect, man. Damn. Sam Brown did always get injured. And about Savion, a bit anti-Semitic that they're sending Hitter to Germany for week 1. Jeez, Louise.
Oh, God.
I digress, though. My Kamari Moulton, that was the running back that burnt us, right? He was their RB2 that went berserk on us.
Yep.
Because their RB1 was out, and he was the one that stepped up, and him and Gronowski had like 4 rushing touchdowns, something insane. My number 2 is, speaking of rushing, going to be Antoine Raymond. And I think everyone's top 2 is probably Raymond and Duff. I'm not certain the order, but I think we might all agree on the order. But for me, I think Raymond is going to get more touches than Duff, no doubt about it. But the running is a little less fluctuant, but wide receiver 1 is the most fluctuant week to week. And I think KJ Duff is going to be number 1 for me. Spoiler alert. I know that I was technically supposed to wait on that, but I think it was pretty clear that he was number 1. But my number 2 is Raymond, just because I think if he gets his 100 yards to 120 or 150 to 180, you expect that from him. But nobody expects a Rutgers wide receiver 1 since the early to late 2000s to be as good as Duff has been the past, I would say, 8 to 10 games of the season. And going into next year, Duff is going to be a top 3 wide receiver in all of college football.
I have at my number 2 the guy that's going to be throwing the ball to him, and Dylan Longren, and that's because he had arguably a better year than what Athan had during his last year in Minnesota. So he's coming in as an upgrade already. So having one of his better games in the season against Big Ten competition, as we said, in Michigan, and now being able to pair up with a better wide receiving unit with KJ Duff, despite Desire Carter. You can also say Cody Koch as well, Ben Black. Those are all guys that if they went to BC right now under Bill O'Brien, they would all be wide receiver ones. BC doesn't really have a lot of good wide receiver talent. They haven't had that since Say Flower was there. And now you're giving a guy who was able to do what he did with 2,900 yards last year and still had a 12-7 touchdown to interception ratio, something that was a better ratio than what Athan Kaliakmanis had at Minnesota with better receivers. There's a chance right now that those numbers go from 2,900 to potentially, I would say, 37 to 3,900.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I would hope. I mean, Adam, who's your number 2?
Number 2. All right, so I had a bit of a different take on this because we all know that Antoine Raymond, KJ Duff are, critical pieces of the offense. But the question is, are we going to have other players who are going to step up to really complement this offense? So number 2 for me is Jackson Gister, the 6'6", 251-pound tight end for Rutgers, entering his sophomore season. We need a tight end. We are going to have a very predictable offense. If it's just handball off to Antoine Raymond, throw it to KJ, we will get stopped by good teams. We need some people to emerge, and I'm putting him at number 2. He's got the size, and let's see what he can do.
He's going to help in the run game a lot. And that's why I'm saying, once again, Rutgers could run 12 personnel if they like to, just because right now they don't have an established wide receiving core. Last year, they were able to throw three wide receivers out there because they had Ian Strong, DT Sheffield, and KJ Duff. Right now, it's KJ Duff, and then there's a dip.
Look, Gister could have a good year. I'm just surprised because I thought our top 2 were all going to be the same here, and he has one career catch for 11 yards, and that was against Norfolk State.
Well, it's because I know that KJ and Antoine are going to have great seasons. That's a given. What I'm looking for is in the top 5 is, kind of the top 5 players that are really critical for Rutgers to have success. And so I think that we need somebody to emerge, and I think that tight end position is where that has to happen.
Gotcha. Well, if it's based on that criteria, I would have 100% put Giwa in my top 5. But I already said my number 1. So
my number 1 is going to be KJ Duff, primarily because right now, there's no big surprise, but he was a top 5 receiver last year in terms of yards, targets, catches, and touchdowns in a Big Ten that included Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, Denzel Boston Jr. You can also say as well Samuel from
Jeremiah Smith,
and KJ Duff was in the ring with all those names.
Well, you could say both wide receivers at Ohio State, although Jeremiah Smith was.
He had better yards than Carnell. Carnell Tate was a wide receiver.
Carnell Tate was the touchdown guy, not the yards guy.
In terms of a bunch of wide receiver one talk, KJ Duff was a top 5 receiver out of all those guys. And now with most of those guys out of the way, most of them being in the draft last year, honestly, if KJ Duff wanted to hit the draft this year, it's unfortunate that he's a sophomore because honestly, if he was a junior, he would have been a guy that a lot of teams in the NFL would look at. And that's why right now, as a junior, the same way Jeremiah Smith is a junior, they're both trying to become top 15 picks. KJ Duff, if he does what we all think he's going to do, he's a guy that he could be a first rounder next season in the 2027 NFL draft.
And by the way, Adam, I know
he has speed, he has the route running, he has the contested catch abilities. If he's able to do that, he's going to be potentially one of the highest picks for Rutgers in their history. I don't think Rutgers has had a first-round pick, not only just in this decade, not only just in this 2000 century. I don't think they had one since, honestly, like early 1900s.
So, I have a personal challenge for KJ Duff. To answer your question, Donovan, this answers your question too, but my challenge is Anthony Davis was drafted 11th overall in 2010, and that's the earliest draft pick Rutgers has had. KJ, do you want to be the earliest draft pick in Rutgers history? You have a chance.
What round was he in?
Round 1, pick 11.
He's not going top 10.
Next year with all the wide
Hear that,
receiver
KJ?
talent?
He's going second round. Second round.
He's one of the better wide receivers going into next year.
I didn't
He's
see
for sure a top 5.
I didn't see KJ Duff against
I would
Oregon.
say around top
We'll see.
6 to 10. Like top 5, he's arguable, but 6 to 10 range, yeah. Because I just know, I off the top of my head, Nick Marsh is most likely gonna have a better season because him at Indiana with most likely with Josh Hoover at his quarterback is going to be a phenomenal year for him. You can also say as well, guys such as Jeremiah Smith, Malachi Toney, who showed what he was able to do as a freshman. So there's guys that are ahead of KJ, but KJ arguably at the end of the day is still a talent that a lot of NFL draft boards are going to have.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Adam, against Oregon, 3 for 41, Ohio State, 2 for 34. So not good games, but he didn't put up a donut, and he didn't put up a 1. So
fair.
It's, they were his worst games of the year as they should have been, but they weren't complete donuts.
Yeah.
And Adam, who is your number 1? Is it also, or is it someone else?
I'll say my number 1. I'm trying to think about when you asked that question. My mind drifted away from football. I don't know. Maybe Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, okay. Transformers Megan Fox.
So here's my number 1. So last year, one of the things we talked about going into the season was C.J. Campbell was likely to be the starter, and Antoine Raymond was going to be the backup. And we talked so much about how it was critical to have depth there and how critical it was going to be for Raymond to emerge, which he did. My number 1 is Deshaun Benjamin. I think it's the same thing this year. We just can't have Antoine Raymond having the burden of, all the carries here. We need a running back that's going to complement them, just like the tight end has to, we need Ben Black to complement KJ Duff. So my top 5 is based on complementing the people we know are already going to be successful. And I think Deshaun Benjamin has shown flashes of greatness at times. I think he needs to emerge for us to have a complete offense that has depth at the running back and wide receiver positions with a strong offensive line.
So everyone healthy, you think Benjamin is more likely to do that than Thevenin?
I do.
Well, you were right about Raymond over CJ last year, and I was wrong about that. So maybe you know a little bit about the running back room.
Benjamin has the same kind of characteristics as Raymond, in my opinion. He's a tough runner, violent runner, and that's going to really put a stamp on physicality for Rutgers if we can have 2 strong running backs.
You really see Rutgers going that route that, just for example, Indiana did that this year with Hemby and Kalen Black.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Do you see them doing 2 power runners instead of a power guy and then a speed guy and Clay Thevenin?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I want. I want 2 power guys because if you watched Indiana's running backs, the way they hit the hole was violent, man. They were just very difficult to stop and very difficult to take down on first contact. So if we can have that kind of combination of running back coupled with, 2 major threats at wide receiver and a tight end who can actually catch a pass and block, outside we could be formidable.
I just wish that Benjamin was able to separate himself from Sam Brown last year because Sam Brown isn't bad, but he's not someone that any program, maybe Temple has him at RB1. I don't know, but I don't think
he's RB1 at Temple.
Yeah,
he didn't leave Rutgers to go be backup at Temple.
Well, maybe he left because he wanted a chance to do it. But my point is that if Benjamin can't separate himself from Sam Brown, with all due respect to Sam Brown, I don't see how he takes the leap over Thevenin.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong because, like you said, he does have similar qualities to Raymond, but I think that what Schiano was trying to do last year, which had its ups and downs for the 2.5 games that it was a thing, was have the typical power back versus third down back or all-purpose back.
Right. Well, we'll see. It's going to be an exciting year. But I guess the theme that I have going into this top 5 is depth is going to be key for Rutgers to be successful. And that's what we need next year.
Easily. That's how Indiana won this year. Won off depth.
Yeah.
And then have a true overall great player outside of Fernando Mendoza. A lot of their guys were still guys that were you can see as rotational players on a lot of these Big Ten teams.
We don't have the same depth offensively as last year, but we do have the better top-heavy names going into this year. Last year, we didn't have a name. Our guy was DT Sheffield, who honestly, I don't know if it's just because of his role or if he genuinely underperformed a little bit, but he wasn't the guy that everyone thought he was going to be. Although he did have a good year last year, don't get it twisted. But coming into this year, we have Duff and Raymond as opposed to one guy that is so-called like the star on offense.
Absolutely. Well, look, if our defense can improve from last year, I think this year is the range of what we're going to be is substantial. We could go 4-8. We could go 8-4. It's going to come down to depth. Are we going to have the depth to win those close games like, against the Minnesotas, against the Iowas? That's going to be the key here. Hopefully we'll get over the hump this year.
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, that's it for the top 5 on offense. And
well, guys, great discussion, and love the comments in the chat. Absolutely. So do you guys have any final thoughts before we end the show?
I know a lot of people are going to be kind of worried about the offense this year. I feel as the offense is going to be more of the question mark than such as the defense was going into the season last year. That was one of the bigger question marks of how this team's going to look, because they have names that can compare with the rest of them, Antoine Raymond, KJ Duff, and it's just outside of those two, what does the other 9 of that 11 on that offensive unit going to bring? And right now, spring ball hasn't started yet for Rutgers. Rutgers right now is doing everything that other teams are doing across the FBS and the FCS, which is winter workouts. And I truly believe come spring ball, there's going to be questions that Rutgers needs to answer. Who's going to be the wide receiver 2 alongside KJ Duff? Is Jashawn Benjamin still going to be this RB2 that Adam thinks he's going to be compared to what me and Gabe are saying with Clay Thevenin? And what is the offensive line going to look like? Because right now, the 3 players I can see starting for the offensive line is Isaiah Cook at center, Taylor Needham, and Kobe Osmond. They got to finish filling up the offensive line and just figure out who's going to be that second-hand guy alongside KJ Duff. And if they're able to answer those 2 questions, they can go into camp and have a lot of confidence going into the season, expecting to potentially winning games.
Do you think Giwa and Needham fill out the outside?
I truly believe that, and they can move Osmond inside to pair that up with Cook. Because at the end of the day, Isaiah Cook's 6'3", 300. That's good Big Ten offensive lineman size.
Yeah, that's true. And honestly, in comparison to talking about the defense last week, I feel like I lost a little bit less hair based on how last year went when talking about the defense. It was always the defense. The defense needs to do this, needs to do that, fire Rob Smith, etc. We have a little bit more soundness defensively. I do like our new defensive coordinator on paper more than Rob Smith. And when it comes to the offense, I honestly have more fun talking about the offense right now because there, like Donovan said, there's more uncertainty with the offense, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a bad thing. We can be a little more creative. We have a good offensive coordinator. We have a coach who has proven he can be a good play caller when needed. And we have 2 quarterbacks who could be QB1. That's going to be interesting. I don't think we'll know who's QB1 until maybe July or August. And that's going to be a very interesting spring battle. It's going to be an interesting camp battle. I'm looking forward to it. And
I don't think that question is going to be answered until mid-August, last week of camp. Because Rutgers plays their first game is September 3rd. I don't think that question is going to be answered until like August 28th, 29th.
It might not get answered until week 4.
It might not get answered until week 0.
I was going to say it might not get answered till week 4 because the first 3 weeks we've been 3 and we're like one of the only 3 programs to be 3-0 5 years in a row. And hopefully it's more of the same this year. But Boston College is far from a Miami of Ohio or a Howard or North State. They're not great. They're not good, but they're still a power forward team.
Yeah. We need to win the games that we're supposed to win. We cannot afford a loss to Boston College,
No.
a loss to Michigan State. So I think that's really going to be critical that we win the games we're supposed to win.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm excited to see how it is we can start to look forward to trying to do that. What this offense is going to look like.
Absolutely. Well, guys, great discussion and great show. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here. If you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be here, as always, every Monday at 7 p.m. And, to talk about important issues as the season slowly but surely approaches. So hope you guys are here next Monday at 7 p.m. Until then, go Scarlet Knights.
And next week, we're going to be previewing the top 10 special teams players. No, I'm just kidding. Go Scarlet Knights.